Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, friends. Welcome to this session on LinkedIn. Uh, uh, if you've heard us in our earlier session, which was not on LinkedIn but on Facebook, or even if you've seen some of the articles that I have posted on LinkedIn from our press coverage, you would already be having some idea of what our view on the market is like. The last time that Guys, I'm sorry, I'll just be starting again. I think there was some issue with the audio. But good afternoon again, and welcome to this session on LinkedIn. As I was saying that if you tracked our earlier live session and if you've also tracked our comments in the press, then you will know that we've been fairly bullish on the market. The last time we conducted a Facebook Live, the Sensex was at 50,000, and this is a good day really to be having this session with all of you because we've had two consecutive bad days for the market. There's been a bit of a sell-off, and not just 100 or 200 points down on the Nifty, but if you look at the broader markets or the mid caps, then the correction has been a lot sharper in a lot of counters, especially some very very popular counters that were furiously rising in the last 2 or 3 months. But nevertheless, barring these 2 days, by and large, we've seen that the market has been inching up. It was 50,000 on the Sensex when we had a Facebook Live last. But today we are well over 60,000 on the Sensex, and therefore it's a great time to really talk to you again. And if you remember the last time, I mentioned why markets are moving up and why we think that the market will continue to move up, even though the economy, was partially in lockdown and we obviously are still in COVID times. One was obviously because a lot of sectors which are impacted the most, say travel, tourism, they don't have an adequate representation in the listed universe. The other two reasons, which I would really like to spend some time on again, is I had mentioned the last time that just like US and Chinese economies have shown that they've bounced back after COVID, similarly, we'll have a situation in India where we could have a very strong recovery. The other thing and the other reason that we spoke about was vaccination. Now, if you look at all of these reasons, uh, especially the second and third, which I mentioned, just like US and China came back into growth, India too has bounced back as expected. Just look at the Q2 results, the ongoing result season. Just look at the results which are announced so far. You look at Titan's result, without having a base impact in the same quarter of last year, Titan has shown a 75% growth in its jewelry business, in its eyewear business, in all the other items that they sell. And that is a massive, massive growth and just tells you the intensity of buying that has taken place in the last quarter. You look at IT companies' results. So Titan is obviously a domestic story. You look at the IT sector. TCS and every other company in the IT pack has given out very very good set of numbers. The deal pipeline is extremely strong, and all of them seem to be giving a very good guidance. And the indication is that they'll comfortably be able to grow at 15 or 20% kind of growth in at least the next 1 or 2 years. That's the kind of visibility which is there. You look at DMart's numbers, fantastic set of numbers. Again, just compare it to the last quarter, compare it to the same quarter last year. On all parameters, the numbers were really, really amazing. Just tells you that the retail shoppers are back. You look at real estate. You look at the results which have come out so far, or at least the indication of how much inventory has been sold so far. not only the affordable housing developers, but we also saw somebody like Oberoi come up with excellent results. Oberoi being a premium developer, in the same quarter last year, sold about 50 units. Just to give you a sense of what they've done this quarter, they did 200 units this quarter versus 50 units in the same quarter last year. Now, even if you adjust for 20 or 30% kind of base effect, still this is a massive, massive recovery or absorption level for a premium realtor like Oberoi. Again, you look at other numbers also. You look at RK Forging, for example. You look at iPro Life numbers which have just come out. Excellent numbers, 30-40% kind of growth in their premium collection. And across the board, all their sub-segments are doing well. So this just gives you a sense of how well earnings are doing. And that is exactly what we were hinting to the last time we had our Facebook live session. That once there's an earnings recovery, you will not see the market stop, because you just don't have to compare it as 7,500 of Nifty from March lows has gone to 12,000 or 13,000 or 14,000. You have to see it in context of where it was before COVID. So from that point of view, I think we're happy that we've got it spot on so far. The other thing, like I told you, was vaccination, and vaccination has happened really fast. Again, last time around I had a presentation. This time I thought we'll keep the chat a little short, and therefore I have not put out a presentation. But if you remember the presentation from the last time, we put out our estimates on vaccination and how we think it'll pan out for the rest of the year. And 60% of adult population, it seems, should get vaccinated by December. And this, in fact, is now seeming to be a month ahead of where we had projected it to be. So now, going by the pace of vaccination that's happening now, it seems that 90% of India's adult population will get vaccinated by March or April of 2022. And that, I think, is going to be great news again. Now, in fact, there are talks of kids getting vaccinated. We'll have to, of course, wait for that. But the point is that vaccination has brought a big comfort to the market. And even if there is a third wave, as is seen in some other countries, even if that is the case, that wave will not have the same kind of fatality. It will not have the same kind of hospitalization needed. And this is a trend that we've seen in other countries as well. It's not really caused a lot of fatality. It's not resulted in increase in hospitalization. And therefore, getting this vaccination in place was really key. And in fact, it's been moving as per a target, or in fact, maybe a month faster than what we projected it to be. So for both these reasons, the market has been going up. And what is my premise now? What is our hypothesis now? Last time I mentioned, and I'll repeat it again, I mentioned that, we, all of us as investors, tend to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what could go wrong rather than focusing on what could go right. And in the stock market, one thing that I've realized in the last couple of decades or so that I've been part of it, is that it really pays to have a sense of imagination rather than fretting over what could go wrong. And therefore, my premise or my hypothesis continues to be that we will see a strong momentum in the stock market, and we could possibly have a K-shaped kind of a growth for the Indian economy in the next couple of years or so. And why do I say that? Is because the shift from unorganized to organized is happening very fast. In fact, over the last few years, it's been happening progressively, gradually, but COVID has only increased the pace of this shift. Similarly, the digital super cycle also is playing out super fast. In fact, companies are really looking at new ways of meeting their customer requirement, marketing, selling online, being close to customers, having a hybrid model than purely having a physical model. All of that is happening. And in fact, what we've observed is that while a lot of people talk about, and the data also by and large talks about job losses, the listed universe, the companies in the listed space have been able to generate new jobs and employment. So that actually is again not just great news, but also supporting evidence for our thesis that the listed space will do better. In fact, we also believe that companies will retain a large part of the cost management that they have done during COVID. And ask anybody, and there are zillion books written on this, and it's obviously common knowledge that any creative or any disruptive change only happens during a crisis, and that's what's happened in COVID. This massive cost reduction drive that companies have done, we believe a large part of that will continue um, uh, to be with the companies. They'll continue to gain and benefit from those cost savings, and obviously the balance sheets have been strengthened immensely. You had deleveraging that's happened, debts kind of come out. Interest coverage is now possibly 7x or so. You look at the money raise that's happened, it's been a record 2 years for money raise. In FY21, you had possibly 80,000 crores of QIB issuance that happened. You had another maybe 60, 70,000 crores of IPO or fresh money that got raised, or companies that raised that money through getting listed. Uh, FY22 also is going strong. Lots and lots of companies, new type of companies are coming and raising money. So all of these really make us believe that the conditions are conducive for the economy, um, particularly the organized economy, and for the market to go up. And what's really working for the economy? I think a couple of things are going very, very strong for the economy right now. One is consumption. When even the heart of COVID, a lot of people feared whether, due to job losses, income losses, whether it'll impact consumption. And for some set of time, it did impact. Essentials were doing well because obviously that's a staple that everybody calls for on a daily basis. But discretionary took a back seat. But what has also happened, I think there is another effect also that's happened. While obviously the people who had no savings suffered, people who lost jobs suffered, but people who had their jobs intact or the businesses intact, or people who had savings, they actually added on to what they had saved till then. Because the upper class or even the upper middle class did not have lots and lots of spendings to do. They didn't have formal clothes to buy because they weren't visiting offices. Holidays are a big expense, and there was no holiday getting taken because international flights were shut. Even domestically, people are wary of moving around from one place to the other. At best, you take a local holiday. So there were savings on holidays, there were savings on credit cards, the savings on commuting. You didn't need as much petrol. All of this resulted in savings going up for the middle class and the upper middle class, and that money is really now, in a sense, if you use the term revenge buying, is taking place, and causing kind of consumption to continue going up. You look at retail sales, they're sharply recovering across the country. In fact, I think it is just about 5% down or so on a pre-COVID basis. Otherwise, that's where it is. It's almost where we were before COVID came in. You look at other aspects as well. You look at the power demand, huge, huge rise in power demand. You look at toll collection. You look at IIP numbers. You look at housing demand. I just mentioned about not just the affordable developers doing well, but also somebody like Oberoi, which is a premium housing player. Affordable housing demand has really been going off, and the last few months has seen a lot of fast inventory absorption taking place. Auto numbers aren't as good, but I think part of the reason is also because there is a semiconductor shortage, there's a supply constraint. So I think all of that kind of takes a toll on that sector. But by and large, consumption is doing well. The other thing I think that's going for the economy is capex. Now, an entire capex cycle has not started. A full-fledged recovery in the capex cycle will take time. But what has happened is that one, the government is spending. It's spending on roads, railways, ports, all of that kind of infrastructure, airports. And I believe by one number that my team gave me, about 1.25 lakh crores worth of infra spend has happened in the last 4 or 5 months. The other thing as far as capex is concerned is again affordable homes. So one part is infra of the country, second is affordable homes. Then thirdly, if I look at another area, I look at renewables. That capex is again going on very strong. The generation that is getting added on the power side through wind and solar is pretty strong. Then the PLI schemes that the government has come up with. Those PLI schemes are causing some amount of capacities to come up, will result in some amount of capacities to come up. So that will need capex. Look at the metal cycle. The commodity cycle has taken off. So metals obviously has come back. Metal companies will start to plan their capex. Now that crude oil prices are also up, refinery capex should come up pretty soon. If you look at the cement sector, another case, barring south of India, there will be capex that comes up in pockets of east, north, west, central, and all of that also will add to the capex. A lot of PSUs who've now come out of maybe a 10 or 12-year bad cycle may plan for some capex, especially the ones linked to the energy space. A lot of private companies are looking at process automation and if not greenfield, is at least looking at capex to the extent of automation. So consumption and capex, I think these two things are working. And the third thing, I think the government is becoming an enabler from the run of mill ease of doing business or the usual thing of being a doer. They've started really becoming an enabler from a doer. And whether it be the corporate tax rate cut that has happened, the electricity bill draft which has come through, the PLI schemes that I mentioned, the infra spend that's going on roads, railways, all of that, and this divestment drive also that's taking place. We recently saw Air India getting sold. It's not just divesting 2 or 5 or 10%; they're doing strategic divestments, and I think all of that really shows the intent of the government. In fact, forget what people are saying in India. International agencies are saying that India will have the highest GDP forecast in FY22 and FY23 amongst all the nations. And therefore, I think all of this really means that the economy will continue to grow at a reasonable pace. You look at high frequency data, all of that is showing that we are at the cusp of reclaiming the pre-COVID level where we were. You look at corporate earnings, which I just spoke about, government tax revenues, industrial output, all of that. In fact, this festive season, we will see a strong pent-up demand. So all of this is really going to augur very, very well for our economy. And therefore, our view on the market now is really just a continuation of what we had said when the Sensex was at 50,000, or even what we've been telling the press and the media in early of this year of 2021. And that is that valuations are not expensive. I know the headline number may appear to be elevated. I know a lot of people are talking about valuations being higher, but I don't really think you can look at a number of PE or market cap to GDP in isolation without really taking into account other factors. And the other factors are that most sectors, their earnings have bottomed out or they're already growing well. And if that is the case, then you will see valuations not looking expensive even as the market goes up after 1 year or 2 years, because earnings growth continues. Secondly, you have to see it in context of cost of capital, and cost of capital is cheap and will continue to be low for a long time to come. Another thing is that this market is very different from the market 10 or 20 years ago. We have a lot more asset-light companies. We have a lot more platform businesses. Many of them are not even making money at the bottom line level. But these companies obviously have a value. So the denominator is very low, but the numerator appears to be high. So it kind of gives the feeling that the market is expensive, but that is not the case, because 10, 20 years, the way you valued companies, the kind of companies that were in the listed space, and the ones that you have today are very, very different. Uh, from a cost of capital point of view, also, we are at a very, very different stage. In fact, when we break it down, when we look at it market cap wise, if I look at the top 10 or 20 companies, then we are very, very confident that there is healthy earnings visibility for these large caps for the next 2 or 3 years. You look at 70% of the cumulative weight of the Nifty stocks. You look at Reliance, good, healthy earnings visibility. The retail business, the telecom business, all of these businesses are going to contribute. You look at TCS or the other IT companies for that matter. I mentioned the start of this session also. 15 to 20% kind of growth appears to be quite visible going forward. Then take another large cap, take Asian Paints, great visibility. DMart, I spoke about Avenue Supermarts, very good visibility. L&T decent given the kind of infra spend that happening. Ultratech again very good because housing demand is there plus infra spend is happening. Titan, I shared their numbers, a very good demand there. So again, very good earnings visibility. HDFC Bank, HDFC, ICICI. You come to the financials pack, Bajaj Finance, SBI, Kotak Mahindra Bank. All of them, if you take all of these are 70% of the cumulative weight of the Nifty. And all of these have very, very good earnings visibility going forward. In fact, even though a lot of people think that the market has gone up very fast, one good thing that's happening is sector rotation. And that is a very, very healthy characteristic of a bull market. That one sector takes over, after that, there's another sector that starts to contribute. I think that is a very, very good sign of the market. So we are very, very bullish for the next 3 or 4 years. In fact, we believe we are in the same place where we were between 2003 to 2007-8. I think we are in that part of the cycle. So the markets will continue to do well. The last time around, I gave you a target of 1 lakh plus on the Sensex. In media, we've already raised the target to about 1 lakh 25,000. And I think 1 lakh 25,000 by December 2025 is the target that we are working with. In fact, it has upside risks. So the next time we speak, I might be telling you the target has been upgraded to 1 lakh 50,000. But at least we are currently working with that number. And for those reasons, we believe that the best is still yet to come. It's not behind us, it's ahead of us. Is a correction possible? It obviously is. No market can go up one way. It does correct. And corrections are very, very healthy as well. But structurally, we continue to remain very, very bullish on the market. And for those reasons, we would recommend to stay invested and keep looking out, being on the hunt for good quality names to build a portfolio and then hold on for the next 3 or 4 years. On that note, I'd like to thank you once again for joining us, and I'll end my opening remarks here and would be happy to take any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Amar, can you talk about the EV market potential in India right now?
Yeah, so potential for EVs is tremendous. I think and I believe that the migration will be much faster than everybody is anticipating currently. If you ask the naysayers, or even if you ask the people who believe, everybody thinks or everybody questions that battery prices are still high. What about electric charging stations? Um, that infrastructure is missing. And there are so many other things that people keep asking and challenging and questioning, and therefore everybody tends to believe that maybe this is something which will take a long time, maybe 2050, 2040, 2030. I think it will surprise us. Just about, I think a couple of years back, even the two wheelers, everybody thought that it will take time before electrification of two wheelers happen. But we've seen Ola Electric, and it's a reality. And in fact, the kind of capacity that they've put up, if I remember the number correctly, is 35% of India's capacity or globe's capacity, something to that extent. That is the kind of capacity that they've put up for electric two wheelers. And that being the case, people are going to shift in a hurry. In fact, Tesla and these people have shown us that it's not the cheapest car that works. It's in fact the the upper middle class or the upper class or the people who can afford it that really want quality products. And therefore, I think if you take two wheeler as a segment, the shift is going to happen now. Then, if you look at the buses segment, then I think any or the three wheeler segment, the three wheeler also like two wheeler, the shift will happen fast. If you look at buses, then I think governments are leading the way. Not just in India, China, but even other places. Governments are at least trying to ensure that state transport, those buses or those vehicles which are procured, those are electrically powered. So I think that shift also will be fast. In fact, in case of even some companies in India, the order books are pretty strong for delivery of such electric buses for state transport. If you come to the four wheeler segment, currently people get the feeling that it will take time because one, battery costs are high. Second, charging takes a very long time, and charging infrastructure is not also around. But I tell you, partly this is not true. You'll be surprised. I was speaking to one of the companies which is into electric charging stations, and they encouraged me to download their app. And they said that download the app, and so I stay in Mumbai. So look at places where you will get an electric charging facility in Bombay, and you'll be surprised. And there are quite a few places that this is available. Secondly, if from Bombay, and if you're in Bombay, then you will know that these weekend getaways which are there, whether it be Mahabaleshwar, Lonavala, or any of these, you will find that that app shows you charging stations in those places as well. So for those reasons, it is not completely true that there aren't enough charging stations. If you want to make that shift today, it is possible. It's not that it's not, and it will only keep getting better. The infrastructure will only keep getting better and better. Secondly, pace of charging. They will have faster charging stations at public places, and you can afford to have a slower charging station in your home. So that also will be worked out. And uh, uh, you know and again, one of the things which I learned is that if you drive an electric vehicle, you will not want to drive the conventional fuel engine vehicle again. The experience is just amazing. It's obviously automatic, it's silent, there's no engine noise. And after you've driven that car, you will not want to drive any conventional car ever again. I think these trends will catch on faster than most people anticipate. So while a lot of people still think that for in case of four wheelers there is still time, I think it will happen sooner than later. However, just I'm diverting and taking a little more time, but finally, if we want to be to if you're taking the climate into regard, then what will also help is when we have more and more renewables uh, creating power for us. That is when truly climate change we will be able to control. Because finally, if you're burning coal and generating electricity, then does not matter if you have an electric vehicle, because you're still that electricity is coming from burning of coal, which is causing pollution. So to that extent, uh, we have to also move from coal powering to having a fair share of renewable power as well. But coming back to your question on EVs, I think it is definitely the future, and it's not a distant future. It's going to happen sooner than most people think it will.
Thank you, Amar. The next question we have is from Mr. Deepak Sagar. He's asking, with the commodity super cycle on a high, how will the margins be impacted, and in turn, will that affect the consumer sector as well?
Right. So, see, as far as uh, commodity cycle is concerned, so there are two parts. One is the impact on the company, and second is the impact on the market. Let me tell you the impact on the market first. Even in the last cycle in 2003 to 2007, when we had a bull market, you will remember that commodity prices were rising then. So there was a super cycle at that point in time too. So it's not as if it impacted the trajectory of the stock market at that point. The stock market continued to rally even though lead prices and aluminum prices and all the other commodities were rising at that point in time. So from a stock market point of view, I'm not really worried about it. Coming to consumer companies, we've already seen that Hindustan Unilever, whose results come out, had only about maybe a 4%, 5% kind of volume growth. They grew 11 or 12% because they took a 6 or 7% kind of price hike, and that was to cover for the inflation in all the commodity inputs that have gone up. So from that point of view, obviously, with this kind of a price hike, there can be some question marks on certain set of uh, uh, consumer companies. And therefore, for those reasons, at least on the staple side, given the kind of valuations that they're trading at, we are not very bullish that you can generate an alpha from an FMCG investment in the next 3 or 4 years. You will be better off being with high beta names. But on the consumer discretionary side, I think demand will still be strong. People will still be buying air conditioners. People will still be going to retail outfits. People will still buy or take the consumer electricals, fans, cables and wires, kitchen appliances. All of these will continue to do well because there is still scope for huge amount of adoption. Penetration levels are still very low, and these are all aspirational products. So I think it may have an impact in some quarter or the other, but by and large, I think discretionaries will still do well, but staples, there is a question mark on it.
Thank you, Amar. The next question is from Mr. Rajat Kundu. He's asking, what is your view on Tata Power going forward?
So I'm not getting into too many stock specifics right now, and in any case, utilities is not a space that we cover in depth so far. Um, but to keep it short, I think times are good. The Tata Group itself is something that we like, and I think across the group they've really pulled up their socks. They have a strategy in place. In fact, I mentioned about charging stations; they are also present there. So I think it's a good outfit, and I do think that utilities will come back uh, into favor at some point in this bull market. And for those reasons, I would be positive. Although we don't have an official coverage or rating on the stock or this sector, like I said, but I think net, I would say just off the hat that I would tend to be positive on this space.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Durgadash. He is asking, what about the PM Gati Shakti impact on the economy, and how the stock market will react on this?
So again, we'll have to look at the specifics, but by and large, what I have seen and the sense that we are getting is that, and I mentioned this in my opening remarks, is that the government is really going from being a doer to an enabler. And from that point of view, I think all of the reforms or steps that they take are going to add uh, significant positive direction to the market. It will add to sentiment and it will add to FII flows as well, especially if the rupee is stable. So I think all of this that is being done is in the interest of the market, and I would only read it as a positive for the market.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Vibhu Venkat Subramanian. He's asking the mid-cap IT stocks like Zenza, Tech, Sonata, etc. Are expensive at par with larger peers. Would it continue to be like this? That these companies are nimble and flexible to ever-changing dynamics of the industries? Kindly advise.
So on mid-cap IT, you obviously have to look at it stock-wise, depending on which one. Like our analysts like Scoforge a lot in the mid-cap space. But by and large, I think what is working in favor of mid-cap IT companies is that people are getting a sense that given the kind of work which is opening up abroad, especially from US and even some other pockets of the world, if a TCS can grow at 15-16%, then maybe mid-cap IT companies can grow significantly higher. And I think that thought, and this is a market, like I said, high beta names will do well. Anything which has growth visibility will do well. So if some of these companies can grow at 20-22% in the next 3 or 4 years, I think that is what is giving them these kind of multiples. And it is not uncommon to find mid cap multiples not just at par sometimes with large caps, but even higher than large caps, especially if the growth is going to be faster than large caps. So in this case, I think that is the case because legacy projects are really going down, and transformational projects or digital projects, that kind of work is going up. And that work is coming in so thick and fast that today, even for somebody like TCS, almost 50% of their workflow comes from digital projects, mobile technologies, cloud, IoT, these kind of things. The other 50% is the legacy work that they do. So in this transformational space, some of the mid-cap IT companies or even some other startups in the unlisted space can really grow much faster if they have those kind of capabilities. So I think that is what is driving the multiples in these mid-cap IT names.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Pranay Mehta. He is asking the results that we've seen of Asian Paints today are not very good. What are your views on the outlook for paint companies such as Kensan, Inlag, Berger Paints, etc.?
So in some cases, what happens is that so if you adjust for the base effect or some other things, then you might actually get a better sense. But one or two results that I have also been seeing that generally the street thinks is not good. I have not found them to be bad because revenue growth has been decent, and in some cases, what has happened is that their margin has been slightly lesser than what it was in the same quarter of last year, and therefore their EBITDA and consequently their bottom line appears to be uh, slowly growing rather than growing fast. But I don't think just a simple quarter comparison really answers or completely tells you what that company is doing. Because the same quarter of last year, if a company has done a 17% kind of operating margin because they significantly cut down on their costs. Um, there was no advertising that they were doing at that point. It was a complete lockdown. So there was a lot of saving at that point, but there was inventory that got pushed to dealers. People still, wanted to use some products, so that sale did happen. So those margins appeared high, but now that people are spending, uh, they've allowed for hiring to happen because they see growth coming. They've started spending on advertising and other expenses, and plus you obviously also have to take into account that some of these input costs have gone up. So that also has impacted margins. So you have to take all of that into context. In fact, in some cases, it might happen that in this festive season, they don't want to increase prices. But after the festive season gets over, we will see some price increase take place by these companies to protect their margins in subsequent quarters. So a strict quarter to quarter comparison, I don't think is always a great idea. Especially coming back to Asian Paints, I mentioned this as one of the large caps where we see visibility. The entire paint industry is going to comfortably grow at 11 to 12% CAGR, if not more. And therefore, Asian Paints, which is the dominant player with 50% market share, will at least grow at this industry pace. Obviously, it can't grow substantially faster because it is the leader, but at least 11 to 12% is what it can grow. And with that, if they protect their margins or grow their margins slightly also over the next 1 or 2 years, then you will see their bottom line growing even faster. So from that point of view, I think there is still a good, reasonable visibility for Asian Paints, and I would still continue to like that company and that sector as such.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Yogesh Patel. He's asking, what is your view for chemical shares such as Deepak Nitrate, etc.?
So specialty chemical, I would imagine is something that you should look at. Within the chemical space, obviously there'll be commodity chemicals, those kind of chemicals. But I think that is not where the real alpha is. The real alpha is identifying a good specialty chemical stock where prices are going through the roof and being invested in that company for the next 3 or 4 years. Because India is definitely an alternative. India will see a lot of demand for specialty chemicals over the next 4 or 5 years. We'll be exporting a lot of this. We'll be using a lot of this domestically. So I think specialty chemicals, firstly, as a pack will do well. So first, I'm breaking the chemical space into two. So specialty chemicals will do well. Now coming within that, there are some companies obviously which have run up lots. I think the intensity of rise which we've seen in Deepak Nitrate, it was bound to happen that when in the market corrects as it did in the last 2 days, that from those levels there will be a 20 or 30% cool off that happens. Yet, if you had invested in this company say 1 year back, you're still much better off even after this 20% correction. So from that point of view, I don't think anything has changed. However, there will come a time where there will be some amount of, depending on which chemical you deal in, there will be some amount of price correction. uh, there will be more supply that comes through, because currently in some parts of the world supply also is a constraint, and therefore if these commodity prices cool off, then these stocks having already run up 5x or 10x may find it difficult to outbid the market. But by and large, I think it's still, this is a very good company, Deepak Nitrate, and so is this specialty chemicals pack. So you should continue to try and identify good companies in this pack. And if that is the case, if you can identify those companies, then I think there's still good money to be made in the next 2 3 years.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Deepak Jain. He is asking about what will be the impact of the interest rate by the US Fed, and also the rising inflation, which is going to come sooner than expected. And the market is driven by liquidity. Will that impact once the QE tapering starts?
Right. So a lot of questions in one. So I would say inflation, I don't think is a worry point just yet. Uh, One is because everywhere the focus is on growth, and central governments and the central banks are focusing on growth more than inflation. That is number one. Secondly, a lot of this inflation is due to a lot of supply constraints, and we'll have to wait and see once we are completely out of this COVID kind of a crisis, and once supply and free movement of goods take place, how much it comes down. So some of this inflation may be transitionary. Part of it will stay elevated, but I think that's a reality that we'll have to live with. But in inflationary times, also, it's best to be parked in certain assets, or in assets rather than having cash, because inflation will eat into your cash. But if you are with assets, the assets also inflate along with that inflation. Coming to rise in rates or even Fed tapering, I think rise in interest rates will be extremely gradual. They are not going to be risen to a point where they start to threaten economies or the stock market in the foreseeable future. I don't see that situation in the next 2 or 3 years at least. So I don't think rise in interest rates is a worry. Similarly, Fed tapering will happen at some point. It's bound to happen because it's happened before also. And if you remember that in the past also, when the US Fed tapered, it was only noise which was around in the press, and maybe for a brief while the markets corrected, but they swiftly turned back and started to rise again. So the US tapering also does not mean end of bond buying. It simply means that we are curtailing the amount of bond buying that we are doing. But still, that still means that the money will keep coming in. So both from an interest rate point of view and a tapering point of view, I don't think they will derail the stock market rally in the foreseeable future.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Verappalli Murali Krishna. He asks that if you are so positive on the Sensex that will go up to 1,25,000 by 2025, can you recommend few stocks or sectors in that particular time frame?
Sure. So I spoke about affordable homes and they're selling fast. And I also spoke about the government that is spending a lot on infrastructure, whether roads, highways, airports, ports, all of that. If you marry these two, then I think it is fairly obvious that anything that has to do with building materials will do well. And for those reasons, we are bullish on paints, we are bullish on cement, we are bullish on cables and wires, these consumer electricals like polycabs and the likes. We are bullish on home improvement. Uh, People are going to use a lot of MDF, a lot of ply, laminates for new homes or to refurbish their homes. So all of these paints, cement, all of these will do well. Take pipes for example. That's another building material. Plastic pipes will do well. Steel pipes will do well because you need it for building homes. You need it in irrigation. You need it in infrastructure. So I think this is one broad space. I think that will do very well. And they are doing well because of real estate. I think real estate also has a pack. Anybody who's into making budget homes will do well. I think construction companies will have a ball in the next 4 years, whether it be KNR Construction, PNC Infra, all of these construction players, they'll have huge amount of order books, massive amount of orders to execute, and in fact, they will pick and choose the orders based on where they think their margin is high. So I think these are areas that we like. Specialty chemicals I already mentioned. I think that's another area that we like. And besides that, I would say in general mid caps. I think if you spot a good uh, management in a mid cap firm which has good revenue visibility, I think over the next 4 years, some of them can be 5x, 10x from here.
Thank you. And we have a lot of questions, but we will be only taking a couple of questions more. Thank you so much for the active participation, everyone. But we'll only take a couple of questions more due to time constraint. The next question is from Mr. Rajaram Jagdale. Your suggestion on correction of market Nifty in the next 1 or 2 months, if any, and few good companies to invest during that period for short to mid term.
Short to mid term is obviously always very tricky. That what do you buy for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month? The longer the time horizon, it's always better. But just coming to your question on correction, uh, uh, so there are two things. One is that correction rarely obliges when you expect it the most, and I think a lot of people are expecting a correction, wanting a correction, and there are some who've not invested in this market are almost praying for a correction so that they can come back in this market. And markets usually do not oblige during such periods. So my sense is that we will still not get a meaningful correction. We've seen the market come down in the last 2 days, but I think it will swiftly recover. It will not be down for more than a week or 2 weeks at max, and we'll start rallying again. We might, in fact, end this year at a number higher than where we are today on the Nifty and Sensex. So this is my sense. So that's number one, that the correction will not come yet, and when it does come, it will be a meaningful correction, but it will kind of surprise everybody and catch everybody unaware. The second part is that in a bull run, these corrections are very, very difficult to predict and get right. So, I could also get it wrong. Maybe tomorrow you get a big correction. But if you just look at even in a bull market, how corrections happen, it is very usual, ordinary, and regular and routine for a market, even in a bull market, to correct 5% and occasionally even 10 or 20%. So, you will at some point in time get a very sharp correction and you have to be ready. But if you are ready with that mindset today, you will not panic when that actually comes to. In fact, you should use that opportunity to add to your positions rather than staying in cash or selling at that point. So I think that correction will come, but it will come at a point when people are least expecting. And my personal sense is that that will possibly be towards the end of this year or maybe Jan of next year.
Thank you. We'll take the last question. It is from Mr. Vibhu Venkasubramaniam again. He asks, what's your view on PSU unlocking happening? When do you think that will take place? Especially post Air India sale. Is it a good time to buy PSU stocks like Coal India, GAIL, etc., which have large capex cycles?
The short answer is no, because see, one thing is that the worst is behind them, and the second part is the best ahead of them. Why, when I analyze the market, or even when I mentioned at the start that we've seen that almost all sectors are now have either bottomed out or they're doing well. So from that, you tend to get a sense of how the market will react in the coming years. But anything that's bottomed out is not necessarily good. It could spend a lot of time sideways. And forget the stock market, even from a company point of view, just because the worst is over does not mean the best is ahead of you. So if you're a Coal India, would you want to be parked in that stock, given that we are already speaking so much about electric vehicles, renewables in future? Would you want to be with PSU banks where you've never seen a meaningful return on equity uh, or return on assets? Would you not rather be with some of the private banks or be with some fast growing companies in specialty chemicals, in construction, in consumer? So to me, that answer is very clear. I would rather be invested in those high beta names where there is good promoter, there's growth visibility, and where I can beat the market. If I am thinking of PSU as a safe haven or thinking of it as a defensive, then I might as well buy a Nifty ETF and play the market uptrend through that investment. But if I'm trying to beat the market and generate an alpha over what the Nifty can give, then I would rather not be with these PSUs and be with other stocks. These PSUs, I'm sure many of them will rise. In the next 4 years, if the market goes up, so will these. But we want to beat the market with direct stocks, and we also want a higher probability of beating because there are no guarantees obviously in the stock market. From both these point of views, you'd rather be with private companies than be with public sector companies.
Thank you, Amal, for your valuable time. It was great having you on LinkedIn live with for the same, and we hopefully will see you soon. And please watch out for our video of Mr. Amar Ambani doing the model trading. We'll be posting it on LinkedIn and all the social media platforms from our end. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks once again for your time. I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.